Hey guys, Terry here with the Forest Farm Project. Thought we'd show you how we prep our cabinets before we paint them. So we bought this plastic wood filler, and it's a all-purpose wood filler. It's by DAP, and it's supposed to be natural. It's stainable, paintable, and it's easy water cleanup. And I've had it dried all over my fingers, walked in there, went to the sink, and it just washes right off. It's pretty simple to use. You just pop the top, and the surface tends to get dry, it looks like a little bit, but dig down in there and get you some. I just put it on my finger, and we got a hole here. Can you see it, Brian?
Yep.
Got a hole right here we're gonna fill. Just dab it in there. Come over, here's another hole. That's where a nail was. And there you go, it's that simple. So you apply that, and I don't know how long it takes to dry, but I imagine in a couple hours you could probably sand it. But we waited overnight and came back the next day, and this is a fine sanding block. I cannot tell you what the exact grit is, but it's very fine. And when you're sanding, don't put pressure on it. If some of these sand pads have some irregularities about them, if it's got a blob there, you don't want to be sanding in that hole because it's going to go right in the hole. When you sand, I take a vacuum and hold it right next to it, and I'll just twirl around like that and suck the dust up. And every hole I move to, I vacuum the dust off of the block as well, because if you get a buildup of dust on there, it might cause it to cause a divot where your hole is filled. This stuff isn't like Bondo, it's not real hard, but once you paint over it, it's there, it's sealed up, and it's going to be fine. But it does sand very easily, so you don't want to put a lot of pressure on it. But before we did that, we took this orbital sander, and we just lay it on here and sand all these edges, all surfaces rather, with this is a 220 grit, and for us it's worked fine. This is poplar that we're sanding. We sanded all the surfaces first. If you have any discrepancies between like on this one, the darker wood tended to be harder, the lighter wood, and this is poplar, tended to be softer. So if it was higher, I could just sand across both of them and it'd level right out. But if the dark wood was higher, if the light wood was higher, I could sand across them and they'd sand right out. If the dark wood was a little bit too high, I had to kind of stay on the dark wood and sand right up to that line and just keep doing that and feel and doing it again and feel until the joint was almost even. Then I would sand over both of them and work my way around, and it would smooth out good. But the darker woods, probably the heartwood, it's going to be a little harder. This is probably more on the outside of the tree. It's softer, it's lighter. So, you got to think about that. The different cuts of wood are going to be different hardnesses. And then we just sanded the sides. And a lot of people on these cabinets leave the corners sharp and they don't sand them around them at all. But we took our sander and lightly sanded on them and rounded those edges over just a little bit, just really lightly. I mean, I don't even think it's a 1/16 of an inch, but it's just a little bit rounded. If you're rounding this off and just kind of working it and you feel, and it starts feeling a little bit smooth, that's great. If you get over too close to this side, it's going to cut into it. So you want to stay away from there. And then we also did these edges right here, run the orbital sander back and forth on all these edges. Again, you do not want to get all the way in the corner, just close. Then, when you've got everything sanded, all these, you slightly round it, come back with the sand pad, and get up in that corner and work that corner and then work that corner. And I put the foam part against the board that I'm not sanding on at the moment and just sand right up to that corner, sand right up to that corner, keep feeling it. When it looks and feels soft and smooth, then you got what you want. And we also round those corners like that as well, up in the corners, the edges of these corners. So you just don't want to get this sander too close because it will cut into that other side and then look like crap then. And this is the sandpaper we used in the orbital sander, and it did a great job for us. It holds up really well. After you do a few cabinets, it loses its sharp edge. It'll still cut, but if you have some harder surfaces that you're having to cut down, if this one was really high and over that one, I would put a new disc in at that time just because it cuts better if it's a new disc. But you also have to be mindful that if you put a new disc on it, you're not going to have to push as hard as you do when the disc is worn some. So if you change discs and you go to pushing a little bit harder because you were having to because the last disc was wore out, then you're going to tear your wood up, start cutting some grooves in it. And I don't put pressure on it. I'm always very gentle and light, and I just give it whatever time it takes to get it smooth. If you start putting pressure on it, you're probably going to end up getting some gouges here and there, and it's going to be worse than if you just took the time and let it do its job. So, good stuff. I'm sure plenty of you know how to sand already, and there's some people out there that don't. The first time I did it, I didn't know what to do, and I learned. A lot of it was through mistakes. So hopefully this helps somebody out there, rookies like ourselves. And if you like what you see, give us a big thumbs up and check back often. We're going to have a lot more coming. See you next time.